Chapter 2203, But I Refuse. Jing Lu's plan was even more ruthless. He intended to destroy Ling's human form, then drag Zhang Yi out to slaughter him. If Zhang Yi knew his scheme, he'd be overjoyed. Because Jing Lu had no clue what kind of being Ling truly was. Jing Lu took a deep breath. Their struggle had lasted over an hour, and he had now grasped the basic situation. The opponent's attack patterns, strength level, and speed were all within his grasp. It's time. Jing Lu raised his right hand, seemingly controlling the operation of something. Clank. The sound of chains echoed rapidly. Zhang Yi suddenly realized the egg-shaped space formed by the realm-binding chain was rapidly shrinking as the chains moved. Is he trying to get in close for a death match? Zhang Yi's eyes widened in shock. This drastically limited the scope for his space shuffle abilities. Therefore, Jing Lu remained silent as the void destiny coalesced in his palms. He needed no weapon, his body was the ultimate weapon. A black lightning bolt tore through the air, its hyperspeed movement creating a trail of afterimages that streaked across Zhang Yi's retinas. A storm approached, the sonic booms of his high-speed movement lashing the air like whips. His speed was too great. As space contracted, no matter where Zhang Yi fled, he could swiftly pursue. Fortunately, Zhang Yi could use the ability of the second hand of time to predict his movements in advance. Jing Lu's demand for a close-quarters life-or-death duel met with Zhang Yi's response, I refuse. What, playing games? As long as I stall, my forces below will secure victory. Then we can engage in a drawn-out battle later. Why risk everything now? Zhang Yi vanished with a flash. Yet wherever he materialized, Jing Lu swiftly reappeared. After all, Zhang Yi's ability wasn't teleportation. Space shuffle required a brief delay, meaning the faster the enemy moved, the smaller the gap in speed between them. Especially in this confined space. Soon, Jing Lu's fist, enveloped in the terrifying might of void destiny, slammed toward the dimensional gate surrounding Zhang Yi. Boom! The fist slammed toward Zhang Yi. This time, he narrowly dodged, but the dimensional gate outside his body shook violently. It wasn't shattering, it felt like being pierced by something incredibly sharp. Zhang Yi's pupil contracted slightly. A night-tier otherworldly being possessed such terrifying strength. It wasn't merely about having a higher ability index. Even if Jing Lu and a human otherworldly being shared the same ability index, Jing Lu would likely overwhelm them completely. This combat prowess stemmed from relentless daily training and the lizard folk's formidable physical gifts. Zhang Yi treated Jing Lu with heightened caution. Punch after punch, Jing Lu's attacks were unadorned and straightforward. It seemed that upon reaching a certain realm, a mutant's assaults would become the purest form of combat. The greatest truths are the simplest. Just as even the most intricate combination locks could be cracked, but building walls from solid steel plates would leave thieves utterly defeated. This battle with Jing Lu made Zhang Yi realize for the first time how the powerful civilizations that survived from ancient times actually applied their supernatural abilities. Fortunately, I'm not a mutant whose primary focus is combat. This human world outsider, whose offensive capabilities had reached the T0 level, spoke thus. Yet Zhang Yi never forgot his original purpose. His offensive prowess was indeed astonishing, but his greatest strength remained his ability to survive. Although Jing Lu had devised a method to pierce his dimensional gate, he could not break through the even more formidable power of the second hand of time, which granted foresight into the next 4 seconds. As Jing Lu's attacks closed in, Zhang Yi narrowly evaded each one time after time. Yet Jing Lu's strikes were too swift. Even though Zhang Yi could predict their trajectories, dodging them was no easy feat at that moment. Ling's voice suddenly echoed in Zhang Yi's ear. Why are you dodging? As a shell devoid of spiritual essence, she had already relinquished control to Zhang Yi. Yet, like the most advanced artificial intelligence, she could still communicate with him. Hearing this, Zhang Yi instinctively retorted, nonsense. Why wouldn't I dodge? Am I supposed to just stand there and get beaten? But the moment the words left his mouth, Zhang Yi fell into a sudden, heavy silence. Ling fell silent too. Dodge? Why would he dodge? He wasn't Zhang Yi now, he was commanding the body of a mighty god-level civilization guardian. This was a body capable of going toe-to-toe with the world's strongest being, the Drucker Titan. Even devoid of any spiritual energy, wielded as a single-horn copper spear, it could still smash a group of bishop-level mutants into a pitiful mess. After dodging one of Jinglu's attacks, Zhang Yi glanced at the long sword in his grasp. Ling's sword was forged with the Yihen tribe's most advanced technology. While the weapon itself didn't significantly boost a mutant's combat power, its defining qualities were resilience and the ability to withstand immense energy output. Suddenly, Zhang Yi understood. After dodging Jinglu's attacks dozens of times, Zhang Yi once again channeled the power of Void Destiny into both hands, charging straight at his opponent. The concentrated force in his palms could pierce through anything, like the sharpest blade, intent on slashing the enemy's body into pieces. But this time, Zhang Yi didn't flee from the attack. He calmed his mind. The second hand of time revealed multiple overlapping images, every possible action Jinglu might take within the next 4 seconds, like frames from an old-fashioned animation. His hands tightened around the ice dragon sword as he channeled the energy within his human form. Suddenly, a peculiar force field radiated outward from Zhang Yi, spreading completely in all directions. Jinglu felt his body suddenly impeded by an unseen force, his movements slowing as if he'd sunk into a vast swamp within the void. Time swamp. Zhang Yi rarely engaged in close combat, but that didn't mean he was unskilled at it. The fusion of his time and space abilities created a vast temporal swamp around him, reducing the movement speed of locked-on targets by over 30%. This ability's deployment was entirely unexpected for Jinglu. He felt like a marathon runner sprinting at full speed, suddenly halted by a banner flapping in the wind, his momentum abruptly slowed. The faster the speed, the greater the effect. This delay caused his attack to falter. Conversely, Zhang Yi before him, for the first time, did not flee. Instead, he swung his ice-blue longsword directly at Jinglu. Unadorned, merely a simple energy discharge. An energy discharge with an ability index of 55,000 surged forth like a tsunami, a torrential flood engulfing everything in its path. Chapter 2204, Borrow My Power. In an instant, this formidable force reached Jinglu, whose movements were already lagging. Caught off guard, Jinglu could only forcibly fuse with the energy of the Void Destiny, attempting to cleave through the deep blue torrent before him. The collision between the two forces naturally erupted into an explosion near his body. While Ling's physique could absorb the force's recoil entirely, Jinglu was directly slammed by the energy blast, his blood surging violently. The terrifying shockwave slammed into his body, hurling him violently backward until he finally crashed into the edge of the realm-binding chain. Bang! Countless realm-binding chains shattered under the impact. Having misjudged Zhang Yi's capabilities, Jinglu suffered his first significant setback in their exchange. Zhang Yi wouldn't let this opportunity slip. He saw the fissures appearing on Jinglu's body from the blow, trickles of blood seeping out. It wasn't fatal, but it was far from easy to endure. This time, he hurled dozens of ultraviolet boxes at once, detonating them instantly. Jinglu's body grew even more distressed. The wounds, exposed to these intensely powerful ultraviolet rays, felt like salt being rubbed into them, excruciating pain that slowed his recovery drastically. And right then, Zhang Yi decided to strike. No more drawn-out attrition, opportunity was fleeting. He leveled his long sword, spirals of light swirling within his left eye. When the white glow faded, his pupil transformed into an ancient pendulum. 3 hands moved upon it, the second hand turned steadily, while the minute hand clicked once. The minute hand of time. Time stood still. One of Zhang Yi's most powerful killing moves, blink in the sky. In this instant, Zhang Yi alone moved through the frozen world. Accelerating himself to light speed demanded an immense toll, carrying enormous risks even with his supernatural abilities' protection. Against Jinglu, Zhang Yi dared not use this technique lightly. He knew all too well the formidable strength of his opponent's defenses. Thus, for this strike, he wielded his sword with both hands, charging toward Jinglu like an eternal streak of light. This blade plunged viciously into the fissure in his chest. As the long sword sank into flesh and blood, Zhang Yi felt as though he were piercing a colossal slab of granite. Every micrometer of progress was agonizingly difficult. Fortunately, he was currently using Ling's human form. Had it been his own body, both arms would likely have suffered shattering fractures by now. Thud! In that eternal instant, the ice dragon sword finally pierced through Xinglu's incredibly resilient body. After breaking through the skin, it plunged into the flesh like a sword through butter. Ultimately, his sword pierced straight through Xinglu's chest, skewering his heart clean through, passing between his ribs, and violently exiting through his back. Time resumed its flow. When Xinglu regained his senses, he was stunned to discover excruciating pain in his chest, as if his heart had been impaled. But soon, he realized this wasn't an illusion, it was real. His chest felt icy cold, pierced through by Zhang Yi's sword. That beautiful, icy woman stared at him with utter detachment. Xinglu's pupils dilated in shock. Never in his life had he suffered such a devastating blow. The next moment, Zhang Yi sensed an utterly terrifying aura erupting before him. It was the feeling of a beast truly enraged to its limit, willing to fight to the death at any cost. Black energy swirled around Xinglu's body like thick, dark smoke, obscuring his form. He resembled a demon descended from hell, his mouth emitting a piercing, shrill roar. Boom! Colossal energy erupted from Xinglu's body, striking Zhang Yi head-on. The force slammed into him, instantly sending him flying backward. Fortunately, Zhang Yi had been prepared, maintaining constant vigilance. And Ling was right, this body of hers was virtually indestructible by any existing creature in this world. Who but the Drucker Titan could possibly wound her flesh? Even if this was merely a discarded shell she left behind in the mortal realm, it was far beyond the reach of a lowly Wulwan clan. Zhang Yi was sent flying, but Ling's earthly form absorbed nearly all the force, leaving him completely unharmed. He stared at Xinglu, his expression turning cold. Xinglu's right hand touched his left chest. His aura became dangerously intense, his breathing growing ragged. Clutching his chest, he lifted his head to glare coldly at Zhang Yi. Black energy had coalesced into a demonic armor, his eyes twisted into a savage glare. You don't think this will kill me, do you? Even with his heart pierced, Xinglu showed no signs of mortal peril. At his level of existence, the term human no longer applied. Lizard men were human too. In ancient times, he would have been revered as a god. Zhang Yi, however, remained utterly calm. I know. Killing a night-level mutant is never that simple. But it doesn't matter. He smiled brightly, as if everything was already within his grasp. I've already obtained what I sought. He raised the long sword in his hand, its surface stained with mottled green blood. Then, extending his left hand, Zhang Yi retrieved a wooden carved puppet doll from the dimensional space. Carved from dark, somber wood, it depicted the form of a Hades gatekeeper, bound by a red cord. Xinglu had no idea what it was, but the moment it appeared, he felt an overwhelming surge of malevolent intent. It was as if countless restless souls, driven by intense resentment, refused to return to the etheric realm. Instead, they clung to the puppet like malevolent spirits. This was the power of a curse. Zhang Yi slowly dripped the blood from his sword onto the doll's head. Muttering, he declared, Ho Tu, let me witness your power. With that, he reached out and untied the crimson cord binding the puppet. 10,000 miles away, in Huashu Kingdom's capital city, Xinjing. Ho Tu, clad in black robes, sat upright at the center of the Earth God's temple. Surrounding her lay numerous white jade tokens, while Ho Tu, Guanlongyue sat with eyes closed, seemingly absorbed in profound contemplation. Suddenly, a thunderous roar echoed from above the Earth God's temple. Rumble! As if a malevolent dragon roared from the heavens, the once cloudless sky abruptly darkened with gathering storm clouds. A massive vortex of dark, dense clouds swirled ceaselessly above the Earth God's temple. This commotion alarmed many within Xinjing City, but Meng Yuanjun merely glanced up before commanding everyone to remain calm. This sensation was all too familiar to him. Over the years, Xinjing City had harnessed Ho Tua's power to eliminate numerous enemies and those who were insubordinates to the will of the Xinjing region's high command.